Testing. Okay. All right, once again, your Electric Motor Division, General Motors Corporation, Maintenance Instruction 1714, Maintenance Instruction, Engine Coolant, Description Coolant is circulated throughout the engine provided the means with the transfer engine component with a water corrosion inhibitor in some application interface use the coolant solutions. Because of the function of the coolant is necessary for the operating efficiency of the engine is performed with the selection of the coolant solution be carefully considered. Coolant solution. A coolant suitable for the electric motor division engine cooling with a system that must meet with the four basic requirements. It must be adequately transfer energy for the cooling system and must not be from form, scale, or sludge deposit for the cooling system. Must not cause corrosion within the cooling system. Must not deteriorate any of the cooling system and the seals material. These requirements are normally satisfied by combining suitable water with a reliable corrosion inhibitor. The certain operation conditions may dictate the use of the antifreeze coolant. In this case, the basic requirements can be satisfied with a combination of suitable water with the ethanol glycol type antifreeze containing an adequate corrosion inhibitor. However, the use of antifreeze involves special consideration regarding items 1 and 3 above. The discussed details are under antifreeze. Should be recognized that the coolants perform satisfactory. Other applications may not be satisfactory for the electric motor division engine cooling system. The difference for the coolant volume of the cooling system are for the ratios of the coolant velocity, temperature for the type of the materials employed, making such comparisons meaningless. Formulation of homemade inhibitor antifreeze recommended such for the compounds difficult with the monitor with the control with the ready with the availability of suitable proprietary of the products for making these practices uneconomical and practical. Where water qualified should be evaluated whatever the new water source is to be used when changing with existing water sources occur. Likewise, quality of the coolant solution should be tested if the new engine is put into service in regular intervals. Therefore, the quality of the coolant should also be known and should be maintained as required. Water used in the cooling system electric motor division should be such quality that it does not contain excessive solvent, hardening salts, corrosive elements such as chlorides. Water containing the constitution undesirable amounts can either be softened or deionized to make it suitable for use. For the steam condensating is also suitable for the use of the cooling system equivalent to distilled water. The asterisk of this publication supersedes all information previously released on regarding engine coolants. Your chlorides maximum part 40 per million or 2 and grains per 2.5 per gallon. Sulfates 100 parts per million at 5.8 grains per gallon. Total dissolved solids maximum 340 parts per million at 20 gallons per gallon. Total hardness 170 parts per million at 10 grains per gallon. Table 2 shows the determinant of the concentration chlorides and the sulfide total dissolved solids in the water. Starting with the right, the chlorides over 40 parts per million, sulfites over 100 parts per million, total dissolved solids over 340 parts per million, and then goes to distilled, demineralized, deionized water suitable for use in coolant. Chlorides, and then the left, the chlorides under the 40 parts per million, sulfites under 100 parts per million, and the total dissolved solids under 340 um, parts per million determine total hardness of the solid water, and then it goes left is total hardness under 170 parts per million, total hardness over 170 parts per million would have softened the water, and then the water would be suitable to use in coolant. Waters within these limit of the table of one are considered suitable for the formulation engine coolant. Water exceeding the limits can cause scale and sludge deposit corrosion combinations of these. Uninhibited water should never be used with the filling of the cooling system, but even temporarily because of the possibility of the rapid corrosion rusting the supply with the uninhibited water, but especially true with the distilled, deionized, demineralized water, including steam condensate. Prior to application of the water, which should be mixed with an inhibitor inhibited with the antifreeze, which would be used with the coolant with using soluble oil type inhibitors is not recommended. Two basic types of inhibitors are the chromate and the borate nitrate, with the most commonly electric motor division. The cooling system, the environmental restrictions, some of the localities have led to development of a non-polluting silicated nitrate inhibitor, but then considered the non-polluting because it does not contain chromium or boron. The unit of the measure throughout this publication commonly used in the United States: dry measure 16 ounce 1 pound, liquid measure 32 ounce 1 quart, 4 quarts in a gallon. Your chromate type of the inhibitors is generally furnished with the form of the powder or pellet. The pH for the inhibitor with a mix with the water range of 7.5 to 9. Recommended for the inhibitor's dosage for the initial is a zero point 0.6 ounces per gallon at 4,500 parts per million. Thereafter, the inhibitor concentration maintained at above zero point 0.4 ounces per gallon at 3,000 parts per million. To dissolve the inhibitor water before adding the cooling system with the coolant and the loss of the system, the makeup of the coolant should be contained with the inhibitor recommended doses for 0.4 ounces per gallon. A chromate type of the inhibitor should not be used with the cooling system containing ethyl glycol type antifreeze. Use of chromate ethyl glycol may be, under certain conditions, result in insoluble sludge forming in the cooling system. Bionitrate type. Bionitrate type inhibitors furnish form of the power pellets from liquid. The pH of the inhibitors mixed with the water range from 8.5 to 10. They also contain the dye that distinguishes the color and suit is able at 190 degrees Fahrenheit. The recommended inhibitor dosage of the power and pellets and initial fills at 1.1 ounce per gallon of the water at 7,500 parts per million. Dissolve inhibitor watering before adding to the cooling system. Thereafter, the inhibitor concentration should be maintained at 0.75 ounces per gallon at 5,625 parts per million. The recommended dose of the liquid inhibitor for the initial fill would be 3 fluid ounces per gallon. Thereafter, the inhibitor concentration should be maintained at 2 fluid ounces per gallon. The coolant is lost from system makeup of the coolant should be contained with the inhibitor recommended at 2 fluid ounces per gallon dosage. Alright, silicate nitrate type. The silicate nitrate inhibitor is supplied with liquid form of the pH of the inhibitors mixed with the water with a range from 9 to 11. This is contained with a distinctive color dye with a stable temperature at 190 degrees Fahrenheit. The recommended dose is inhibitor with the initial fill of 3 fluid ounces per gallon. Thereafter, the inhibitor concentration remained above the 2 fluid ounces of the coolant is lost. If the system makeup of the coolant should contain inhibitor recommended with the 2 fluid ounces per gallon dosage. Experience to date with the shown with the performance of the inhibitor more sensitive than the chromates and borate nitrates. So the fluctuation in concentration level thereafter the concentration silicate nitrate solutions must be carefully monitored during service. Silicate nitrate type of the inhibitors are considered non-polluting because they do not contain chromate or boron. However, the federal, state, with the local population, such restrictions should be investigated before discharging the inhibitors. Your inhibitor guidelines with the recommended with the inhibitor the concentration for the found suitable with the most corrosion inhibitor with the use of the always contact with the inhibitor supply with the recommendations to the proper concentration level of the application. When used electric motor division for the inhibitor should be contained with a specific concentration stronger trade with the element with a determine the degree of the water with a combination lube oil and analysis. It is important that the inhibitor concentration determine the test method with the recommended by the supplier. Most suppliers are prepared with the furniture kit with the purpose to satisfy with the hygienic precautions that always be exercised with the handle corrosion with the inhibitors. Avoid possible irritation with the eyes, nose, and shield with the special important with the handle with the chromate inhibitors. The chemicals and corrosion of the inhibitor with the slowly depleted surface effective life with the inhibitor dependent with such factor with the cooling system condition hours of operation coolant with the metal with the temperature of the aeration with the rate with the combination with the coolant and general rule with the coolant with the discharge of the least annually with the cooling system filled with the new inhibited coolant. Except from the drain inhibited coolant with the end from the engine was reusing another the more poor practice with the cow with the corrosion motor manufacturers advising and mixing of the different brand of the corrosion inhibitor with the restriction recognized with the sodium over the corrosion inhibitor may be compatible with the other brand with the incompatible may leave with the foaming the precipitation accelerated corrosion. Electric motor division concurs with the manufacturer device with the respect. Prior to the Fleetwood application with the new inhibitor formation, the advisable to these formulation for the fuel engine of this determine whether the inhibitor can be able with the operating environment in which it will be exposed. Alright, your antifreeze alcohol type. Alcohol type antifreeze is not recommended for use for the electric motor division cooling system because of the high coolant temperature operating temperatures. The ethyl glycol type where electric motor division engine cooling system must be protected with free of the ethyl glycol type of the antifreeze recommended. The type of the antifreeze contained with the blended with inhibitor ingredients prevent with the corrosion. Antifreeze must contain the distinctive color stable with a temperature of 190 degrees 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Ethanol glycol type of the antifreeze should be based on the concentration between 33 and 68% by volume is required with the prevent freezing antifreeze with a concentration below 33% that do not provide sufficient inhibitor to give the adequate corrosion protection. Using antifreeze corrosion with a 68% of the rate of the freezing over the point will not provide with a good heat transfer because of the antifreeze effect with the heat transfer rate. It should not be used with the prior consolidation with the electric motor device serve with the representation regarding the specific engine installation possible engine derating requirements. The corrosion inhibitors incorporated with the antifreeze are slowly depleted and surface how along with the inhibitors remain effective demand with the fact of the such for the cooling system conditions, hours for the operation coolant, metal temperature for the aeration rates for the contamination solution. Usually an antifreeze manufacturer recommendations use the product only for 1 year. In special applications involved with a large capacity of the system, such as electric motor device for the antifreezing solution may be used a long period of time. The customer should contact with the manufacturer for the instruction may be include periodic testing. Antifreeze solution manufacturer chromate type of inhibitors should not be used with the cooling System containing the ethanol glycol type of the antifreeze with the use of the chromate with the ethyl glycol under certain conditions may result in insoluble sludge forming the cooling system. Figure 1 depicts the freezing point for the type of the ethyl glycol antifreeze water solution. Freezing position points of the specific brand with the brand may vary slightly for the prints of the count shown with the graph. The graph is sufficiently accurate for the use of estimating antifreeze requirement regardless of the brands. Ethanol glycol type of the deionized water because of the hardness of the total solids of the corrosiveness of the water varies through the United States. Antifreeze containing the inhibitor of the deionized water should be used in an area of the water does not meet the standards listed in the water, but the type of the antifreeze containing proper amount of ethyl glycol to protect the cooling system freezing at a negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Most manufacturers advise it again with the additional supplemental inhibitors adding to either fresh or used antifreeze solution with the ad against mixing with a different antifreeze brand. The restriction recognized by the fact that the supplement with the inhibitor added to the antifreeze brand with contain the materials which may be compatible with corrosion inhibited with the initial incorporated with the antifreeze. The additional with the compound with the increase corrosion with the cooling system for the electric motor division corrode with the antifreeze manufacturer device of the antifreeze manufacturer market with the inhibitor concentration liquidly designed with the re-inhibitor with the antifreeze. The inhibitors are designed only for their antifreeze and should be added only with their advice. Some brands of the antifreeze contain anti-leaking compounds which by plugging eventually reduce heat transfer quality for the cooling system. Electric motor devices advises electric motor division advises against for the antifreeze containing the anti-leak compounds. Alright, and this shows a recommended concentration range with electric motor device in form of the CDED cooling systems and their antifreeze percentage by volume, and it has on the side ambient temperature Fahrenheit and antifreeze by volume. Field qualification test for the corrosion inhibitor of the antifreeze before cooling system with additive that is placed for the general surface field qualification test should be undertaken. Sample of both the new old cooling systems upon request of electric motor device recommended with the procedure of the valve for the qualification inhibitor of the antifreeze. Do not play for the unqualified additives in general surface additives that may be capable of causing widespread cooling system damage. And this was a maintenance instruction on the electric motor division General Motors. I believe it's General Motors, not General Electric. General Motors Corporation, maintenance instruction 1748, revision B.